I don't really like the word backlog. I think it brings about a sense of burden, of obligation. It can feel like a huge mountain that you've got to climb. Instead, I've been trying to start thinking of this in terms of a catalogue. A catalogue is exciting. You can go through it and pick out a game that catches your attention. There's less of that feeling that you're doing something because you have to, and instead you get to play something because you want to. Everyone has a video game backlog of some kind these days. We start something and then we get distracted by the next new shiny game, or maybe something multiplayer comes up that our friends get us into, or maybe it's those really annoying sales with their tempting offers of 50%, 75%, sometimes 90% off. Before you know it, you have dozens or maybe even hundreds of games in your libraries, and you've definitely not played them all. And so the backlog is born. I've got plenty of games in mind, and so I decided that next year I want to try and tackle some of these. I got a new graphics card for my computer recently and I've been really excited to use it. I've been trying out lots of different games to see how they run, but I decided that I should finally start giving some of these games my proper attention instead of just testing the graphics. I have far too big of a Steam library that's been sat unplayed for a long time, and I don't really think it's realistic to say that I'm going to clear, 15 or 20 games next year. I think if I say that, I'll just end up rushing through them as fast as possible, or choosing the shortest games so that I can hit an arbitrary number. So instead, I've picked out a list of games that I really want to beat. Now, these are not just games that I want to beat because the internet says they're good. These are games that I personally would really like to complete. I'd like to get through the story, maybe the gameplay's really good, or they're just sort of these huge games that I know I'm going to really enjoy if I can just get stuck into them. Now, I did have a rule or two when I created this list, and the first one was variety. So you probably know by now that RPGs are my favourite genre, and there are a lot of RPGs I still haven't got around to playing that I would really like to play. But I purposefully didn't fill this list with too many RPGs because I know that if I play a bunch of these long, really in-depth RPGs back to back, I probably will end up getting sick of them eventually. Variety, I think, is the best way for us to not get tired of a hobby, and I've kept that in mind when putting this together. The other rule was designed to keep that feeling of obligation down. I know that there's going to be exciting stuff coming out in 2025. I know I'm going to want to play multiplayer games, I know I'll get distracted, and what it is that I want to play will change down the line. I know myself enough to know that that's going to happen. So what I've done is I've picked out 10 games that I really want to complete, like I said, but my target is only really to actually beat 5 of them. This way, if I start one and I'm not really feeling it, I don't think it matters so much. The obligation stays low. It allows us to continue to enjoy games rather than playing them out of a sense that we need to. If I pick something up and I get partway through it and I'm not enjoying it, that's fine. I can just put it down, move on to the other game, and I'm just hoping to beat 5 of these by the end of next year. So at this point, you might be wondering what's on my list for 2025. So without further ado, here is my narrowed down catalogue of games. Baldur's Gate 3 is the first one of the best and most popular releases of 2023. I really enjoyed this game, to be honest. It's got everything that I want. I like D&D anyway. It's such a detailed game. There are so many different ways you can play. The trouble is just that it's so long. I'm not very good at beating long games. This would actually be my 3rd time starting Baldur's Gate 3. Once on my own during release, one time when I played with a friend, and we got a good way into Act 2 before falling off, and between those two I think I have something like 60 hours played combined, but I just never managed to finish it, so I'm hoping that the 3rd time will be the charm. Nier Automata, the combat I think just looks really slick, the gameplay seems to change up a lot, it's got that variety that I mentioned, and the fact that when you've completed the game once, you've actually got a lot of other endings to see, and they apparently get better and better. There's lots of things here that have meant that I'm interested in playing this game for a long time, for a number of years really, and I just never got round to doing it, and so this one is one I'm hoping to get to next year. Persona 5 Royal. Now, I've said in an earlier video that one of my biggest gaming regrets is that I never finished Persona 5, and I mean to change that. I got pretty fast through it, but I think what happened was I hit a bit of a difficult boss, and then I took a little bit of a break because I was getting frustrated and just never ended up going back to it. This game is so stylish, it's so cool. It makes a lot of other turn-based RPGs look kind of boring in comparison, and it's got some top-notch character work. Death's Door is a game that I always thought looked interesting, a mix of this sort of Zelda puzzling and Souls-like looking bosses. From what I gather, it's pretty short. It's a short and sweet game. It doesn't stick around for too long. I bought it a while back during a Steam sale, along with a load of other games when it went down to only a few pounds, and I never got around to giving it a go, and so I would really like to. Doom Eternal. So Doom Eternal is on this list because I really love the 2016 modern Doom game. There's not many games that I've completed more than once, but that was actually one of them. I played a little bit of Eternal, and it just seems to me like it's the first game plus a bit more. You know, it's got a little bit more story and lore, it's got some more weapons, more enemies, and so on. And I also want to play this one now because I'd quite like to have it beat by the time Doom the Dark Ages comes around, or at least close to there, you know. I thought that trailer was cool, and I'd sort of like to have the other Doom games beaten by the time that I play that one. Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. This one's a bit of a double hit for me. Firstly, I just want to play it in general, but then I also thought that it would make an interesting Steam Deck video to make. This would be my first Armored Core game ever, but I really love the look of the gameplay, the way you sort of glide along the floor, or you can fly whilst you're sort of shooting. It's got great customization to it as well. It just kind of seems like you can adjust your Armored Core basically however you want to. I'm pretty excited to get to this one. Marvel's Midnight Suns. Now, I started playing this game earlier in the year, or maybe it was last year. I did have a good time with it. I like strategy games, I like card games, and I grew up as a Marvel fan with all the comics, so when there is a superhero game that's done right, I'm always interested. I would love to go back and see the whole thing through. I actually even bought all of the DLC when I picked this up, so there's plenty there for me to get stuck in with. Next up is Elden Ring. So basically I just wanted to have one Souls game on this list. I've never ever beaten a Souls game. I've basically tried all of the main ones, but I always give up, and at some point I would really like to have beaten at least one of these games. I picked Elden Ring to go on here just because it's the one that I got the furthest in when it first came out. It's meant to be pretty good for beginners as well because it's open world, so if you get stuck you can just go and find something else to fight for a while, you know, level up, get stronger, and then go back to the thing that you were stuck on. Horizon Zero Dawn. This game, I just find the ideas in it so fascinating. I love the design of the robotic creatures and the dinosaurs. I love the mystery of what has happened in the world. I've had a little bit of it spoiled by now, but I don't think I've had everything spoiled. It's a series that I would really like to get into and see through. I might cheat slightly with Zero Dawn though. All of the other games on this list I already own, and I do also already own Zero Dawn 2, but I might just pay the £10 to upgrade to the remastered version. I just think the improved visuals and especially the improved facial animations will probably make a big difference for me. I did notice that the facial animations in the original game are quite stiff, and I think it would bother me a little bit, so I might get the upgrade. And finally we have XCOM 2. Similar gameplay style to Marvel's Midnight Suns, but without the card games, but of course XCOM was one of the originals in this strategy genre. This game plus the War of the Chosen expansion are just meant to be incredible, and I enjoyed this when I played it originally, but I just didn't get too far with it. I do have a bit of trouble with XCOM, and XCOM 2 in particular. It has so many different systems and so many layers of difficulty in this game. It is designed to be hard, but it's not always in a way that I necessarily enjoy, with things like there's time limits and there's negative aspects to the strategy. You get, you know, if you have a bad fight, it can really affect how things go down the line, and I'm not always really into that. But on the other hand, I have always liked the way you built and upgraded a squad, and they got better, and you sort of tailored them to how you wanted to play. And the strategy gameplay in general is fun, so that's why it's one of the games that I'd like to tackle. So those are the 10 games. Like I said, I've picked 10, and of these I'd like to actually complete 5. It feels like a more realistic goal because I know for sure these aren't going to be the only games that I play between now and the end of next year. I have started a couple of these already, but I'm also playing a few other things at the moment as well. I've been making my way through Halo 2. I'm often dipping in and out of World of Warcraft. I've recently started playing Core Keeper with my wife, and I know there will be games that come out next year that I will want to play, and of course there's always going to be games that I'll play specifically for this channel. Some of the games I've picked are really long too, so 5 seems good to me. It might sort of seem like a small number, but if you really think about it, and this is the way that I'm thinking about it, these are some of the top games that I really want to play, that I think I'll have the most chance of having an amazing time with, and that they'll stick with me for a long time. I've not just picked any old games from a backlog. I've gone through my catalogue and picked what I hope are some greats. It's a lot more intentional. And if I manage to complete 5 amazing games next year from this list, and I really enjoy them, then I think I'll have had a good time with this hobby. I'm also pretty excited about going back and forth between desktop and handheld with some of these. Some of the games I'll probably stick with just playing on my PC, but some games where the performance doesn't matter so much, like maybe Persona or maybe Death's Door, I think I'll play just as much on Steam Deck. Up until now I never really switched, I mostly just played stuff on handheld on the Steam Deck, and it'll just be nice to have the option if I want to play with better graphics for a little while to load up my same save on the PC instead of, you know, maybe playing something different on PlayStation 5. One more thing that I wanted to cover, so everything that I've talked about is me trying to be more intentional with my games, and to go along with that I've started using a website called Backlog. I'm not sponsored or anything, I'm just trying it out for a little while. But basically it's because I realized that when I make notes on games that I'm reviewing for the channel or just making videos about, I tend to remember them better, I've realized. So I thought I'd try doing that for the games that I play personally as well. If anyone has been using this site for a while and they've got any tips on getting the best out of it, then let me know, I'd be really interested. And I also think it'd be really fun if you guys who are watching this would like to get involved as well with sort of trying to be more intentional in completing some games next year. Then, you know, please in the comments write out a list of games that you'd love to work your way through in 2025. Everybody can sort of see what everyone wants to play, we can comment on each other's things, and maybe to get some ideas for fun stuff that we might want to tackle down the line. And if enough people are interested, I'll try and think of a way to keep you up to date on my progress, maybe in the community section or something like that, and feel free to ask for updates in the comments. In general, I just think there are so many games that we want to play that the list can really start to feel endless and like a huge chore. I haven't even mentioned plenty of games that could easily have made it onto this list: Dragon Quest XI, Octopath Traveler 2, Stellar Blade, Astro Bot, and really I've started to think that the best way to tackle this is to think super hard about just some games, just a small list of games that you would absolutely love to complete. Narrow that huge selection of games down, and that's what I've done here. Things are bound to change, we might get a whole new Nintendo console next year, but if I manage to beat 5 of these games in 2025, then I know I've had a good time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.